This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 1853, Comic Talk. Welcome to the show. I'm Adam Murdo.
I'm Ian Levinstein.
And I'm Chris Eberly. You just got a great stable of themes these days, man.
Yeah, I know. and slowly but surely, I am just going to start randomly assigning whatever one I feel like I'm in the mood for that night. But I'm still feeling disco right now. Welcome one and all to the show here. We have a nice old-fashioned comic talk and catch up on things we've been watching and reading, as is tradition. And he's not on this call, but we will say that our thoughts are with Mr. Shane Kelly, as he is currently dealing with some not so difficult, but also very frustrating issues health-wise that will be resolved as of tomorrow, and he can probably regale you all on it the next time he's on. But
if he so chooses.
If he so chooses, exactly. But our thoughts are with you, sir, and may the force be with you.
Shane-aroo.
Alrighty. So before we get started here, just the usual reminders that we are brought to you by you, the listeners, over at patreon.com/comicgeekspeak. And you guys, it's just turned over to June here as we record this.
Yes.
And here we are with 117 people that have just pledged their June donations, and we thank them so much for that. And we've even had some new people join recently. Longtime listener of the show, Fred Hudson, just renewed his patronage over at the patron page. So we thank you very much for that.
Yes, indeed.
Continue to keep this show rolling. We thank you so much for your continued support of the show in any way, shape, or form that you can give it. Patreon.com/comicgeekspeak. As little as $1 a month is enough to keep the lights on, virtually and in our own homes. I'm not saying that this helps us pay the electric bill, but still, either way, thank you very much for that support. And old school donations are still accepted. If you want to head over to the main Comic Geek Speak site and then scroll down to the donation page, you can just send an old school PayPal donation that way. And that is just as easy as clicking on donate and then clicking on the donation page. And if you don't have anything to donate, then just send us a review on iTunes or let somebody know about the show. It's as important as anything else. So you are listeners, keep things rolling, baby. Terrific. All right. And even though he's no longer a active sponsor of the show, I will mention that that Mr. Sean Wheatley does have some further auctions happening in June. So if you do head to whatnot.com and search Left Coast Love, you can get some future Whatnot action going for Sean. Just throwing the love out there for him in one shape or one way or another, because he's a great listener of the show and has been for quite a many years. So,
and no one loves like Levinstein.
Amen to that. All right. So yeah, it's been a little bit since we've had a old school comic talk episode of the show. How have things been going with you guys outside of show business lately? I know we catch up on our own lives a little bit. Murd, you have officially relocated for the summer.
Yep, that is correct, Ian. We have passed that point, and I'm now fully matriculated down here for the summer. I was just saying to Chris before we began recording, things are slow down here so far, as is the norm. Memorial Day weekend, the town was packed, but nobody wanted to. The novelty of summer has far from worn off now, because we're just getting started. So nobody's ready to think about Christmas. We were kind of just sitting there twiddling our thumbs at the Christmas shop for the most part, but that's more time to sit there and read.
That is very true. Yes, indeed. Yep. And Chris, you're getting mighty close to the end of the school year, aren't you?
That is correct, Levy Pooh. I have a few more weeks, and then one of the last remaining perks of being a teacher will ensue in all its glory and grandeur.
Which is throwing everything up in the air and saying, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free, damn it.
And I'm looking forward to, I hope, a relaxing summer, as long as fate and family cooperate.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just looking forward to a summer of reading, running, film watching, Instacarting. That's my retirement plan.
There you go. There you go.
Still working on my history podcast. I'm basically writing a book, so that's we're gonna do a lot more of that over the summer. And yeah, just a lot of things to look forward to. Just hopefully a lot of low key activities.
Nice. And maybe Loki season 2 when it comes out.
Well, I didn't have a bad day today, but I knew that when you joined us on the air, that
it was just gonna get that much rosier.
I would be transported to like 1961, way up at the Catskills, and
oh man,
you come on stage and everything was okay.
It figures too, like right around the time that I had that cackling laugh, I immediately hear thunder outside my windows. Clearly, that's exactly what's going on.
Some tempestuous weather expected in the Northeast this evening.
Yes, not to mention it was pretty damn hot this weekend, and I got to experience pretty damn hot in Philadelphia. That's how I spent this last weekend. On Friday, we made our way over via Amtrak, got to experience a couple from Denmark get on the Amtrak train and have to be told by the Amtrak conductor that this is Amtrak and not SEPTA, and their tickets were for the wrong one, but he would let it slide this time because, he
was being a good ambassador.
That's brotherly love for you.
Exactly. That, although he did make it perfectly clear, don't do that on the way back because DC is not going to be nearly as friendly with the cross honoring as going towards that area, maybe. So hopefully they found their way safely afterwards and took the right train home. But I was there from Friday until Monday, actually, and we headed to the Franklin Institute and checked out the new Harry Potter exhibit that had recently opened there. It's a rework of an existing exhibit. Like they had a version of it that ran from like 2009 until about 2016, and then they added in some more recent stuff from the more recent non Harry Potter by name.
Yep, the Fantastic Beasts stuff.
Exactly, the Fantastic Beasts stuff, and added in some props for that as well. But it was pretty cool. You chose a house, and then you would go through and wave your band on like a kiosk, and then you would take place in these fun activities throughout, and try to make sure that your house beat the other houses in the contest that was happening. Kind of similar to one of the Marvel exhibits that I did in Manhattan, not the one that was at the Franklin, but one of the other ones where you sort of had like a tournament against other Avengers, quote unquote. But it was great, and I mean, as you guys well know, the Franklin goes all out on all of their special exhibits, and it's amazing how they're able to transform that space and make it look so different every single time, and as much as they do in that space as well. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Got to see some cool stuff, and then we basically spent 3/4 of the rest of the time at the Amour and Love fountains because the kids that we were with were like, "It's hot, let's go to the sprinklers." And what better place to go than a freaking fountain to enjoy that? So that was the bulk of the rest of our time there, outside of trying the Please Touch Museum a little bit outside of Philadelphia towards the zoo. And that was pretty fun too. So,
as always, Ian, the field reports of your geek outing are always a tonic for the spirit.
Why, thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It was a good way to spend a weekend, definitely. And I got to try a new brewery while I was at it. So hey,
of course,
hadn't been the Victories outlet in Philadelphia, but they have one right on Ben Franklin now that opened up right next to a Federal Donuts, for that matter. So I can get myself some good donuts and then have some beer afterwards. So it was a carb-filled weekend.
The very best kind.
Indeed. Well, let's start off with some news that broke yesterday, which is relevant to us comic people. Joe Quesada is leaving Marvel. After 22 years with Marvel, he is exiting his position. Obviously, he hadn't been editor-in-chief for a few years. He'd been, one of the higher ups, one of the executive positions. But he announced on Twitter and elsewhere that it's his last week with the company, and he's going to be heading off to do whatever comes next. He hasn't made that perfectly clear yet. Sometime in the near future, but
I have to admit, I'm increasingly so out of it. I didn't realize he was still with Marvel.
You can file me under that heading too.
Yeah.
Well, he really hadn't been as vocal as he used to be. So ever since he stopped being editor in chief, he eventually stopped doing his convention panels, like Cup of Joe and what have you, and his name would stop appearing in the main masthead of Marvel Comics. But he was there in an executive role, and was also key in at least the behind the scenes of a few of the movies. I know back when Bendis and the quote unquote cabal were still a part of it, like he was very much into whatever was happening in the Marvel Cinematic world, but he still had his hands in it. And yeah, it's certainly an end of an era, because DiDio went bye-bye over at DC not too long ago, and now here goes Quesada, and that's the bulk of the 2000s right there when it comes to comics.
Yeah. Well, I think Quesada oversaw a lot of great stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the Marvel Knights stuff that he was involved in the beginning was wonderful.
Yep.
Black Panther, of course, is part of that. And
Sure.
I remember when I was first cognizant of him being involved in Marvel when he was working with Kevin Smith and Palmiotti in the Daredevil story they did, which I guess was the late 90s, now that I think about it.
Yep.
Which was many people's like a sort of revival of Daredevil, so to speak. I won't pretend to know or remember everything he was involved in, but when I hear that name, my general sense is, good comics overall. Sure. Obviously, was he involved in Brand New Day?
He was one of the driving forces, unfortunately.
Okay, so
One More Day and Brand New Day. Yeah.
Well, nobody's perfect.
Straczynski's arm about that.
Yeah.
Nobody's
perfect.
One More Day may have sucked, but I actually really enjoyed Brand New Day.
I'm sorry. I was thinking One More Day. I apologize.
Yeah. And because Quesada was the one that he's never really believed in a marriage for Peter Parker. So it was kind of like his machinations to try to like make that.
Yeah. Well,
but
like I said, nobody's perfect.
Yep. Not every bowler hits a strike every single time. And frankly, just 22 years with a company is nothing to sneeze at right there. It's he oversaw a lot of change, but also, I mean, guys like Bendis would have never really had a foot in the door over at Marvel without the assistance of Joey Q, and Palmiotti and that group. And we wouldn't have the Marvel that we have today, for good and for bad, and also possibly even the cinematic universe the way we do right now without that. So the Ultimate Universe, perfect example. I mean, my God, everything that came out of that was all part of Joe's like revitalization of Marvel at the time.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff in the Ultimate line.
Yes, indeed. Yep. And there's been rumors that he may be heading into movies after this. Whether he's producing them or making them, I'm not quite sure. But funny enough, just about the same time, Bill Jamis left his position at the comic company that he'd been working at. From the looks of things, by pure coincidence. But it's just funny that Quesada leaves Marvel, and then Jamis leaves whatever company he was working with, which I think was like AW something or other.
God, I forgot about him.
Yeah. I will remember him more for the assholishness that he pulled at Marvel than anything else.
The sophomoric antics. Yeah.
I seem to recall some insipid competition he stoked with Peter David. Am I remembering this correctly?
You are correct.
But obviously it was silly because Peter David actually can write and he couldn't. So
yeah,
I just remember it being enormously ridiculous and deeply underwhelming.
Yeah. Jameis was over at AWA, and now he's moving
Okay.
over to Be Good Studios. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, You Decide was a thing. Let's just put it that way. That was a thing.
Well, I do think that the point of said thing was ultimately just to bring a little more attention to Peter David's Captain America.
Sure.
It's just I wish they had a more subdued and less inane way to accomplish that. But yeah, Jemis and Quesada, they were ringmasters, basically. They were
Sure.
master hucksters, and Quesada, he enjoyed a good hoax and or a good stunt, and I don't, so I didn't much enjoy their tenure as honchos there at Marvel. And when Jemis was quietly shuffled away upstairs and Quesada, fell silent and stepped out of the EIC role a little bit after that, I shed no tears, just as I did not emit any cheers when he ascended to that role in the first place. And now I learned that he never actually left Marvel, which is as much a surprise to me as it was to Chris, and I have no strong feelings about it one way or the other. He's been quiet these last however many years, and so I don't resent him for having some kind of position of executive or creative power at Marvel behind the scenes.
Yep.
Now that he's leaving, I'm like, okay, glad that you had such a long run, Joe. Good luck in your future endeavors. It doesn't really make a difference in my world one way or the other.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. I'm more curious as to whatever is going to actually happen next, and whether it's anything that I have to pay attention to or not. Whether it's his own stuff, or whether it's working for a company, or starting another cinematic universe somewhere. I'm who knows, but either way, he's loud, he's boisterous, and he's got a cuppa, and that's basically what he is.
Do you think there's anything to this coincidence that he and Jemis are leaving their positions at the same time? Do you think they've got something lined up together?
I think it's a coincidence, honestly. I think that like sometimes there's too good of a coincidence for it to be a coincidence, and then other times you're just like, oh, that happened. And I don't think they even really liked each other that much. So I would actually be more surprised if they're doing something together than if they are not at this point. And
I find that reassuring, Ian. Thank you.
Yeah, and not to mention that the comic industry is actually way bigger than we could even imagine it to be. So changes like this, while it does appear that sometimes they have a certain amount of kismet to them, there's a bunch of different companies. So we'll see wherever this goes. Meanwhile, after our last discussion of trailers, another trailer came out for Thor, and this one had a lot more meat to the bones. The Thor: Love and Thunder trailer that came out, I'd say maybe about 2 weeks back now. Yeah, we got some Gore the God Butcher action. We got way more Jane Foster going on, and possibly even a bit more of an idea of like where the story is going to be going in the movie, even though to certain points they're still keeping a bit more tight-lipped about it. But I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on that, and what you guys thought about a little bit more of a taste of Thor before we get there.
Well, you'll have to ask Chris, because I haven't seen this thing.
Chris?
I haven't seen it either.
Oh my God!
There you go, Ian.
I totally
Floor
failed.
is yours.
It's the end of the school. It's in the school year. I'm sorry. I'm just kind of backed up with stuff.
No, please, no, by all means. Well, we get the main like going on of this is Korg is the narrator. And he's
okay, Cronin Rock guy again.
Yes.
Voiced by Taika Waititi again.
Exactly. Yeah. He's sitting down with like a bunch of kids, telling them the the myth of Thor, and how he got himself back from dad bod to back to shape, and went about the business of going about the the cosmos and what have you. And that's when we get our first back and forths with Jane Foster. There's a great line in it at one point, like how many? Oh wow, how many years has it been? And he says something. She says something like, "Oh yeah, no, but what's it been like 3?" And like he said 8, because for her I guess she must. It's possible she may have very well been dusted, because for her,
Right.
it was 3 years. For him, it was 8, because there's a solid 5-year gap there and what have you. So that was pretty cool. We get our first glimpse of Christian Bale as Gore the God Butcher. And let me see if I can bring up an image of what he's going to look like here. But basically, it looks like that is going to be the driving force of the movie. Is basically the two of them having to team together to take on Christian Bale's Gore and stop a Ragnarok type situation from happening again, as he shockingly does not like gods very much and wants them to go bye-bye.
Wow.
Yeah. Very striking image. You barely even tell it's Christian Bale. But in some of the shots, you can tell a lot more that it's Christian Bale. But this one in particular is probably
that is right out of the book. Holy mackerel!
The most Palpatine of the shots, I feel like, also that I saw in the entire thing.
Well, what's exciting is that they seem to be incorporating, strong story plot elements from the Aaron run, which is a classic Thor run.
Mm-hmm.
Gore was a major adversary for Thor in that run, and then of course the whole Jane Foster's Thor plot line as well. So I'm really excited for this. I know we talked in a previous episode. I think some of our comrades in arms are a little concerned about this going more into like the sort of light-hearted direction.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of happy with a hybrid of the two if they can pull it off, because I like how do you pronounce the director's last name again? I'm sorry.
Taika Waititi.
Yeah, like I like his style, like his approach. Interested to see, oh, look at that. God, she did get buff. Holy mackerel.
Yes, she did. Yep. And for you audio listeners out there, it's an image of Valkyrie and Jane Foster Thor on the dais of some other gods that we'll be seeing in this. And I will reveal what one of them is, as it is quite literally in the trailer. But we get to see our first image of Zeus. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Let me see if I can bring up the image itself.
Well, what's exciting about that prospect is that, and Merck can attest this better than anybody, Marvel is such a rich tapestry of different mythologies they've utilized. Oh, yes. So they could show a whole host of different gods that have been Marvelized, so to speak, over the years. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yep.
So
Celtic, Egyptian.
Yep.
There he is, Russell Crowe himself as Zeus.
Perfect.
Not the word I'd use. Looks a little doughy. He's a little less than the Grecian ideal.
I would agree with you on that. Yeah. We're gonna have to wait and see how they're gonna be utilizing them in general. But I am glad that we get some of the further pantheon, and perhaps that means we may very well get Ares as well.
Or I was gonna say, well, we have a Thor Hercules confrontation.
That would be terrific.
Which is a tried and true Marvel plotline.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, many times over.
Yep.
Yeah, if we get Hercules out of this, I'm going to be a happy camper, because he's always been one of my favorite Marvel characters in general, and I'm surprised that they haven't utilized him in the cinematic in any way, shape, or form yet.
That's true.
Yeah. Trailer also came out for Ms. Marvel, as we got our first glimpse of that not too long ago, and I look forward to when we get that. But more importantly, She-Hulk, and the questionable CGI that has already been fixed. As eagle-eyed listeners of the show may have noticed, and was pointed out on the internet as well, there's a Disney Plus trailer that's almost the exact same trailer, if not the exact same trailer, with much better CGI than the one that actually got released online. So it's further proof that it wasn't a finished product to begin with, and that they're just going to continue improving it until it actually winds up making its way to screen. So that's any of you who may have been a little bit of trepidatious about the way that may have happened to look. Well, let's wait until the actual thing comes out. But I cannot wait for Tatiana Maslany's She-Hulk. Is that in
August or July?
August, I believe.
Okay, terrific.
Yeah, because I believe because we're getting Ms. Marvel first.
Okay.
The Ms. Marvel series comes out on June 8th, actually. So next week.
Oh, wonderful.
Yep.
And I have to ask, is there any more news about Daredevil?
Nothing yet. No.
Okay.
Yeah. We just know what we know, and what we know is still nebulous. So it's until Marvel actually comes out with a full press release, which probably won't be until their next investor meeting or what have you, then it's probably going to be close to the vest. But we do know that it is definitely going to wind up happening. Just they haven't announced anything further.
I've been eagerly anticipating that they would return to that character since the last season of the show.
Yes.
So really excited for that.
Absolutely. Yep. So yeah, let's head over to comics. What have we been reading? What have we been?
Well, actually, 1 second, Ian. Did you guys watch Obi-Wan?
No, I have not.
Oh,
yet. No.
See, I failed in the trailers. You failed in the Star Wars.
Yes.
Well,
I mean, I'd love to find out what your thoughts so far, Chris. If
well, I'll give you a spoiler-free assessment. Did you watch it, Murd?
I have seen the first 2 episodes.
Okay, oh, so Murd and I both seen it because that's all that they dropped so far.
Yeah, by all means, lay it on me.
Here's a funny part about my experience. So my older son Ricky was watching it, and I came home, and I'm like, Ricky, what'd you think? And he's like, it's too much fan service. It's not working for me. He said, I'd rather watch like the last season of Clone Wars. That was so much better. I was like, all right. So, I watched it. I loved it. And here's why I loved it. Because I actually agree with what my son said, but sometimes I just love good old fan service. The reason why I loved it, and I knew this, I kind of expected this to be the case going in. I just love Ewan McGregor in the role, and getting to watch him, be this, advancing middle-aged Obi-Wan who's experiencing, a real crisis of I call it faith or confidence, however you want to put it, in his role as like a sentinel over Luke, which I'm sure I'm not giving anything away because that's where he was going. I found really interesting, and they're bringing in characters from, without spoiling for you, Ian, from other parts of canon, so to speak.
Sure. Yeah.
And I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's so far it's predictable. Like you can kind of like any good Star Wars is essentially derivative because it's always taking from other genres and concepts in previous stories from whatever medium. So right. You kind of can see where this is all going, and the journey he's going to be on. So nothing really like mind blowing about what I saw so far, but it's him doing that role, and I think the writing is pretty strong. I like the interactions he's had with different characters, so I won't mention at this point. The one thing I will say is that clearly it's going to be one of the main thrusts of the whole season. I'm sorry, do you know how many episodes this is going to be?
I think 6.
Okay, so one of the main thrusts that I am looking forward to seeing how they explore it is, and this is all I'll say, is that his realization that Anakin is alive.
Ah, yes.
And I mean, clearly a lot of it's going to be geared around that. And I'm really interested to see how they handle that, because what's interesting, if you go back to, I'm going to say Star Wars for Murd. Okay. So, the original 1977 film.
No numbers need apply.
That was for you, brother. And when Tarkin is disputing Vader's assertion that Obi-Wan is alive, and Vader just says, well, the last time I felt this was in the presence of my old master. Now, what's interesting is that that's all he says, and you can now appreciate how they're going to take that and do something with that, where before you just thought, oh, Vader hasn't seen him until he appears on the Death Star.
Sure.
And now they're leading to believe that actually may not be the case. So, because the events in the show are probably like, I'm guessing 15 to 20 years before the first Star Wars film.
See, funny enough, it's probably even closer to like 5.
Well, yeah. Luke is 10.
Luke is 10.
And
okay.
He's like 19, I think.
Okay. Yeah. So 9 or 10 years. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So, Yeah, what'd you think, Murd? Uh-oh.
I got to tell you guys, I really feel like Disney is approaching diminishing returns with these Star Wars projects because I like each one that comes out a little bit less than the one before. And yeah, this Obi-Wan so far is not really. I don't feel entertained or engaged very much at all by this one. I mean, I don't even think I liked it as much as Ricky did, Chris, because he's talking about fan service. This fan didn't feel particularly well serviced by these first couple of episodes.
Okay.
And it's going to be hard for me to justify my reaction without getting into spoiler territory. So I'll just be as vague as I can be. But yeah, Chris is talking about this journey that Obi-Wan is on and the headspace he's gotten into, and not. I do always try to give all available credit to the actors, unless I think the actor is part of the problem, which is actually rarely the case for me. And this is not one of those instances either. You know, Ewan McGregor does do a fine young Obi-Wan, but it's just I don't really want to watch a show about an Obi-Wan Kenobi who is a sodden, sad sack of self-doubt, which is basically the point to which he's.
Oh, that alliteration was majestic.
He's not living a great life on Tatooine, Ian.
No, he is not. He is not.
I kind of gathered that, honestly, from what I've seen and what I've heard about it. And frankly, if you gentlemen do want to go further spoiler, that's perfectly fine. I'll just gladly take off my.
No, it's okay. I think we're getting to the heart of the matter without doing that. So.
All right, no worries. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, one thing that isn't a spoiler, the fact that this is only about 9 years before Star Wars, and we go from Ewan McGregor to what Obi-Wan looks like in the first Star Wars. Like, I guess looking after kids can do that to somebody. Like that's
oh God, it sure can. I can assure you of that.
I mean, I mean, because Alec Guinness, I mean, he's great and all, and they do look enough alike, but maybe 20 years, not 9 years. Yeah. That's a bit much.
Well, maybe he's going to have some traumatic experiences that are going to further hasten the aging process. That's why innately I thought, oh, this is like 15, 20 years before, because that would make more sense as to how old he is by the time we get to, the first Alec Guinness appearance. Yeah. But,
overall, though, I mean, well, I'm trying to think of a good question to ask that wouldn't be spoilery, but do you feel like it's adding to lore as opposed to weighing it down?
I think it could. It depends on how they handle Vader in this show.
Got it.
I completely agree. I mean, it could very easily list over into weighing down territory.
Yeah. I mean, if they handle that in a way that it enhances, the viewers, or the fans' appreciation of those two characters' dynamic and what happened between them and so forth, it could be really interesting. Or if it's just like, on the other hand, they just do like sort of like cheap throwaway cameo appearances that don't really advance the story, really do anything beyond like, oh, look, it's that person. That's not going to be interesting. But the way the second episode ended gives me some optimism that they might go in a very interesting direction.
Okay.
The other thing is that they're also, without spoiling, is they're exploring how rapacious and self-dealing the Sith are. And what directions that might go in. So all I'll say is, like, in these first two episodes, Vader has minions who are hunting Obi-Wan.
Okay.
And they're not all operating in lockstep with each other.
Yeah, they've got their own agendas.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, because when you think about like Dark Force beings, it's not like they're all teaming up because they like really are all in love with each other, or like everybody has their own. I mean, go back to Palpatine telling about, the myth of Darth Plagueis, or however he called it. And, obviously he's talking about murdering his own master. So that could be interesting too. We just have to see what they're going to do with it. So I'm hopeful.
I am at least impressed from what most people have told me about this is it does the prequels justice in a way that the prequels never could.
Okay, I could see that because they're definitely exploring through Obi-Wan the consequences of, especially of the last prequel, which I thought was the best of the three.
Right.
And just the fallout for him. And this also can help explain why he's living the way he's living now and why he's just sort of, as Murd put it, this sodden sad sack, magnificent Murd, because, he's clearly been traumatized by the events of Revenge of the Sith and what happened there. But like I said, it's very much the classic, the fallen hero trying to revitalize themselves and refine their purpose again. And in the first two episodes, you see, sort of a quest is thrust upon him that, you assume is going to, sort of regenerate, what's best in him. But we'll see. But I did, and I agree with what you said, Ian, in that they are exploring the ramifications of what happened in that episode 3, we'll say.
Well, good.
So,
I'm glad, and but by the next comic talk, I will have definitely watched at least part, if not all of it, because I know that I've been waiting for it. It's just being out of town and also getting caught up on the other thing that I watched, which I'm wondering if I'm the only one of the three of us that have seen all of season 4 of Stranger Things so far.
I've watched episodes 1 and 2.
Okay. So Murd, as someone who's only seen season 1, I will tell you this. Each subsequent season of the show has gotten better in some way. Season 2 for me was a flop. 3 and 4 so far. And we've only gotten part 1 of season 4. There's going to be 2 more episodes released on July 1st that are going to be movie length, that are going to continue and conclude this season. And then season 5 will wrap it all up. But I loved season 4.
So you finished it.
I finished it.
Wow. That's a lot of time. Those are long episodes.
I know. I actually started it while I was in Philly. I brought my Roku with me and we watched the first 2 episodes while the kids were asleep in the hotel room with Martha's cousins. And then over the last couple of days, we've been basically mainlining the other 5 episodes. What I will tell you is this is Chris Claremont level storytelling. In a very good way. It reminds me of his era of X-Men. There's some Dark Phoenix vibes going on with some of the stories.
Well, there's a major Nightmare on Elm Street vibe going on in the first 2 episodes I saw, at least.
Yes, and you better damn well believe that that's going to continue.
Yeah,
to the point where it's not a spoiler to say that and I'm not going to say who he plays.
No, I know he's in it. Yep, Robert Englund.
Robert Englund does guest star as a character in this season, just to drive that whole thing home. But
yeah.
The storyline with 11 gets very, very Dark Phoenix, and I'm talking like Mastermind Dark Phoenix.
Well, that's not surprising considering how they opened the first episode.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know what, Ian? In the 2 I've watched, I mean, obviously because I grew up smack dab in the time period the whole show has been capturing. I mean, it's such a love letter to that period. So for that reason alone, I always enjoy the show.
Yeah.
But what I'm especially enjoying in these first 2 episodes and in previous as well is the characters they've created. Now, granted, you can kind of tell now some of these kids are better actors than some of them are better actors than others. Like some of these kids are probably not going to go on to be like great actors later in life.
Yeah.
Some of them
already are. Some of them
are. Yeah. Like I could watch what's the Dustin the actor? What's the character?
Oh, darn it! Now, whenever I'm on the spot, I immediately forget everyone's names. Let me look it up. But I'm sorry. Did you say Dustin's actor?
The character with the curly hair, the hat.
Oh yes. Dustin. Dustin is the name of the character.
Okay.
In Wolfhard?
No, this is
no. Gaten
so
Matarazzo. Yeah.
So whenever Dustin and Steve are on screen and they have their like big brother, little brother sniping back and forth. I can just watch that for an hour because
Agreed. Yes.
they're both really good actors. They have great chemistry.
Mhm.
And the best parts of that show for me are how well they've developed the personalities of some of these characters and how they interact with each other.
Yep.
And it's just, there's so much. I mean, obviously the nostalgia is just, you OD on it. I mean, when you watch it, but it's like anything. When you have strong characters and you really enjoy and believe in their relationships, they can kind of go anywhere with it, and I'm along for the ride. And the again, I've only seen the first two, but the entity they seem to be dealing with now is quite frightening. And I'm just interested to see how they bring it all together, because we've got the whole Soviet Union plot line, and then we've got
it is Cold War out the wazoo, Murd.
Yeah.
all the 80s tropes of Soviet interference and what have you. That's all there for us.
And the funny part of that is we now know the Soviet Union was on its last legs at this point, but
Yes.
no one really understood that at the time.
Yep.
So
because we're in 1986 at this point.
86. Yep.
Yeah.
So it's so you saw the whole thing though so far. I take it you were pleased.
I was incredibly pleased, and the ending leaves me very much pining for the last two episodes, which will be out a month from today. And then again, there'll be one more season to go that'll wrap up the entire Stranger Things story. But the stars of this are characters that Murd hasn't been introduced to yet, because a bunch of them don't get introduced for future seasons. Max Mayfield.
Well, she can really act.
She's the best. Sadie.
Yeah, she can really act.
I think she was in the Fear Street movies recently on Netflix, that are based on R.L. Stine, property, and she's terrific in that. Those are really super fun horror movies for kids, basically. And the three movies altogether, they do different time periods, and like one of them is based today, one of them is based in the 80s, and one of them is based in the 1800s. And it all kind of ties together in a witch storyline that's great. And Sadie Sink is in that, but also the parenting chops of Maya Hawke, aka Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke's child.
That's great.
She is just as good
Great.
an actress as
Yep.
either of the two of them. She is outstanding. She plays a character named Robin in the show, and she's basically Steve's best friend. And
they work together at the video store.
Yes, they do. Yep, they work together at the video store. Before that, they worked together at the Baskin Robbins. So that's can't get more 80s than that, baby.
No, it's some of the characters have wonderful chemistry between them. And that just makes the show all that much more enjoyable, because you really start, again, it's like anything. If you believe in and care about the characters, you're along for the ride. So I'm loving it.
And what this season has done with the whole Dream Warrior aspect, bringing in the Freddy, bits and pieces that they did, and also just getting more of Eleven's backstory. As it's only a slight spoiler to say that at the end of season 3, similar to Jean Grey, 11 is powerless, and part of this new season is her trying to figure out her place in the world and whether or not she should even try to get her powers back.
And what's exceptional about her performance in the two that I've seen is that they write it really well, and she's acting really well, because she's trying to communicate and be, quote, normal among other teens, and she really can't. And there's a very powerful, you'll know this, when she has to give a presentation in class.
Yeah. Oh boy.
And it's not bad writing or bad acting. She's trying to convey something that she doesn't really know how to do to a very unfriendly classroom of her peers.
Yeah.
And look, part of Stranger Things obviously is because it's all about people who are basically nerdy in many cases, and how they're trying to find their way and acclimate and fit in or not. And obviously she's the most extreme example of that, but really most of the characters, I mean they're obviously taking Will in a very particular direction, which I won't spoil, but you can already tell where that's going.
Yeah.
And all I'll say is he's not in a good place to be in the 1980s.
No.
So there's a lot of interesting areas they're going to pursue. I mean, Luke is the black kid Lucas? Is that his name?
Yes.
The character. His sister is tremendous.
Oh, she's the best.
I mean, she's. But again, I'm glad that they're ending in a 5 seasons, Ian, because I think we're supposed to believe they're freshmen in high school.
Right now, they're supposed to be freshmen in high school, and they already look like freshmen in high school.
No. So, they look like juniors or seniors. So, I'm glad that they're gonna wrap it up.
Two final comments. One, Brett Gelman's Murray. Brett Gelman is a terrific comedic actor.
He's fabulous.
They bring him on as this, almost like, guy you bring in the clutch. And the interactions he has with Winona Ryder is beautiful. And he just gets better and better as the season goes forward. But my one final comment on it, to drive home by Chris Claremont, is the name of their Dungeons and Dragons group is the Hellfire Club. And I'll leave it at that.
I'll be right back, gentlemen. Continue. I'll be right back.
Yeah. So they're not hiding that. Their love of Claremont X-Men is strong, and it simply gets stronger.
This is a positive thing.
Indeed.
Yes, and I did see you posted on Facebook. Season 4 of Stranger Things is the Dark Phoenix saga, so there it is. Your point is supported.
It certainly is, and I mean, if you ever do get the chance to catch up, I'm sure you're gonna enjoy what you got there, Murd. But it's all a matter of time.
Yes, and further DVD releases, because although I have broken into many continents of the world of streaming, Netflix is not one of them.
Yes. Well, I'm sure either way that can be arranged one way or the other. I mean, you don't necessarily have to. All right, you know what? We'll just leave it at that.
There are ways.
Exactly, there are ways, machinations of getting a hold of Netflix. Oh yeah, and there's this.
Slid your stiletto blade in there very cleverly, Mr. Levinstein.
Thank you. I was trying to, at least for once in the last couple of episodes, to finally get it a little bit of a surprise. And here we are. It's Muddle the Murd time here on Comic Geek Speak, and Murd will explain how and why and who and maybe because.
Yep, just some of the W's, maybe an H.
Exactly.
All right, so we're talking comic book trivia here, folks. That's what Muddle the Murd is. It involves I, the Murd, answering comic book questions that you, the listeners, have submitted. If you'd like to participate in our little Muddle the Murd segment, all you have to do is come up with 3 comic book trivia questions, 1 Marvel question, 1 DC, and 1 about comics from some other publisher. Also, they need to break down in terms of chronology by 1 question about comics pre-1970, 1 about comics between 1970 and 2000 inclusive, so the years 1970 and 2000 themselves are included in that category, and a 3rd question about comics after the year 2000. And don't forget to include the answers to these questions, otherwise we won't know if you have successfully muddled me or not. And when you're writing them, please try not to focus on things that are too obscure, picayune, granular. No random little background details from panel 3, page 6 of the Creeper number 5 from 1969. Nothing you can't ask about that issue. Just make sure it has something important, something that has a significant impact on the plot or characters of that story, not just like the background artwork. And also, please, no questions about letter columns, advertisements,
not even hostess ads,
non-textual stuff like that. So once you come up with your questions and answers, you put them in an email with Muddle the Murd in the subject line. You send it to comicgeekspeak@gmail.com, where it will be found, and it will be put in a special folder where Quizmaster Ian will withdraw them when the time is ripe. He will ask those questions of me, and if I answer all 3 of them incorrectly, you, the would-be muddler, will become an actual muddler, a muddle laureate. And I will, at my own very dear expense, mail you a fantastic prize. And today's muddling contestant will be playing for this prize It is a Tomorrow's publication.
Ooh.
It is the Comic Artist Bullpen Complete Collection. It is a trade collection in the supersized Tomorrow's format, collecting all 7 issues of the short-lived but fondly remembered Comic Book Artist Bullpen fan magazine. As
Good stuff.
Edited by John B. Cook, it contains
stuff.
interviews with an astounding array of professionals from the comics field, including Joe Kubert, Marie Severin, Walter Simonson, Sergio Aragones, Joe Sinnott, Kyle Baker, and more. And it's all underneath this fantastic Jack Kirby baseball cover image.
Everything involving comic book artist, great. John B. Cook did a wonderful job at the publication.
Indeed. Alrighty, well, this Muddle attempt is by longtime listener and recent Patreon contributor to Comic Geek Speak, Kim Bean, Kim T. Bean to be exact, and she says as follows: "Are my Murd muddlers?" And beginning with pre-1970. Third publisher.
Ooh.
All right.
All right.
Yep.
Admire the ambition.
Yep. We start with from issue 4 of the long-remembered sci-fi gold key title, Magnus Robot Fighter.
Wow.
Yep. Issue number 1 of Magnus was a book-length introductory tale, but most other issues had a second shorter feature that went on to have its own gold key book. What was its name, and who drew and sometimes wrote it?
Oof.
Okay, we're asking about the backups feature from Magnus number 4.
You got it.
I have no idea whether I do or not. Well, yeah, especially if I'm not sure of the character, I'm going to be even less sure of the creator. Though the fact that it was written and drawn by the same person might be a clue. The best I got here is, I'm going to say Russ Heath is the creator because he's associated with Magnus. And for the character, I'll say Dr. Spector with a K.
So you got the Russ part right.
Wow.
It's actually Russ Manning.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Another great artist.
And the title was The Aliens, a splendid sci-fi story of mankind's early meeting and working successfully with aliens. And that went on to have its own gold key book after being a backup in Magnus.
Okay, I actually was not familiar with the feature, and so I feel a little better about getting the creator wrong in addition to that, because I was just kind of torpedoed from the start.
Hey,
okay.
Again, you were on the right Russ track, just wrong Russ. Moving on to 1970 to 2000 Marvel. Marvel Premiere number 1 kicked off with a bang in what year with what marvelous Marvel hero?
Yeah, I gotta say, a lot of these are feeling kind of like two-pronged questions.
Yes, if you get one of them right, I'm giving you the answer. So
Evan Steele spoke of.
Indeed. So let's focus more on what marvelous Marvel hero was in Marvel Premiere number 1.
Marvel Premiere number 1. Yes, this is something. Does your body language tell me that you know the answer, Chris, or that you're...
I'm struggling because I'm getting my house titles mixed up.
Yeah,
and I think I was veering into Marvel Spotlight territory.
Those are Marvel that, yeah. All right, I'm going to say The Power of Warlock.
And you, sir, have avoided a muddle.
And did it ask for the year?
It did ask for a year.
I was going to say 1970.
1971.
Okay.
Yep. All right, but that's the meat of the question, and henceforth you have indeed avoided a muddle. So job well done, sir. Yep.
To further clarify, I'm not opposed to multi-part questions as long as they're all like part of the same thing. You know, like what are the 6 gods that are the patrons of Captain Marvel?
Right. Exactly. So
it's all basically asking the same thing, but asking, what's the character and what's the year? That's 2 different things.
I agree entirely, and henceforth, you have been answered correctly there. And of course, it was Roy the Boy and Gil Sugar Cane.
Gil Kane, famous Gil Kane cover. I can visualize it.
Indeed. All right, let's head over to post 2000 DC to finish us off here. In the July 2000 issue of The Flash, who did writer Mark Waid tell us on the cover that the Scarlet Speedster had to beat to defeat the magic of Felix Faust?
Ooh. All right, and I probably own and have read this issue. If we're talking about 2000, I'm certainly read up that far and beyond. All right. So the cover tells us that Flash has to beat somebody to overcome the magic of Felix Faust.
Indeed.
Yeah, this is not ringing a bell with me at all. Does he tell
Take
us
one of your famous guesses, Murd.
Does Kim tell us the issue number, or is it just the cover date?
Just cover date. I'm gonna try to find that for you right now, actually, just to flesh that out. But yep, okay, it is issue 162 of the Flash.
Okay.
Oh, Levinstein in action. Oh.
Yes, thank you very much for the additional boost there, Ian.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, you're right, Chris. I think a famous undertug is necessary here. Gosh. I'm going to say Crackle.
So he must outrace the power of Shazam, Captain Marvel.
Oh, wow, good one.
All right.
That's a good one.
Yep, and I did indeed find the cover based on knowing what issue it is, and I'm going to bring that up for us all to see. But
thrilling!
It does very prominently say that right there, smack dab on the cover with the old school Flash logo. And let's see if I can get a good cover issue here.
I'm sure I'll know it when I see it.
Oh, absolutely, because I actually immediately did myself the moment that I saw it there. You know what? I'll just go with the small one because I'm having trouble finding the big one. Here we are. Okay, voila. Share screen, and yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that cover. Yep.
Yep.
Felix. Yep.
Yep. It's a very, very tiny cover, but to stop Felix Faust, the Flash must outrace the power of Shazam. So there we are. Yep, good old crossover there between Flash and Mr. Captain Marvel, Shazam himself. All right, well, Muddle avoided, but a good show.
Good questions. Good questions.
Narrowly.
Yep.
So, yes, well played, Kim, and thank you for playing our game. And we encourage you to submit again. Keep trying. There's there's no upper limit to the number of times you can attempt to play. You just put you right back in the bottom of the queue, and we'll get to you when we get to you.
Indeed. Yep. And we have about 8 left in the queue at this point. So a note out there to listeners that if you have been chomping at the bit, waiting to attempt to muddle Murd, now is your time to do so, because you probably will not wait that long. Of course, I say that now, and for all I know, it'll be 6 months from now. But either way, give us your muddle opportunities, and we will certainly add it to the queue. And yeah, you will get your chance. So please.
I think 8 will at least get us through the summer. Let's put it that way.
Yep. Yeah. comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. Make sure Muddle the Murd is in the title, and follow those rules that Murd has spoken, and you will be added to the queue. Excellent. All right. Comic talk conversation time. And Chris, what do you got for us?
So,
rubbing his hands in anticipation.
Yes, I always look forward to these discussions. Astro City. That was then. Nice. So I remember when Astro City first came out in 1990, whatever year it was, the 90s. And I think. Thank you, Murd. And I was already a fan of music for Marvels. And, knowing that this was a creator-owned project, he's working with, 2 great artists, Brett Anderson, who does the interiors, and of course, Alex Ross on the covers. I was enthralled from the first issue. And I read this series for a long time, but then for whatever reason, I fell off it, and now I'm getting it all again in trade so I can catch up again. But this is meant as a one-shot sort of introduction to a new storyline they're going to pursue in the book.
Yep.
And, dealing with a team of teen heroes and the consequences that ensue due to in situations they're involved in that leave a mark, so to speak. And that's all I want to say. But look at that cover;
it's beautiful,
and that should give you look at what they're driving in. That alone should give you an idea of how immensely entertaining this issue is. Murd, you're going to love it.
I'm already loving it, Chris. Just
Yeah.
looking at that image, right?
Yeah. So that this is I've been very spotty with Astro City. You know, I'm sorry to say the past several years, and this very much whetted my appetite again. And as I mentioned, they've started releasing the series from the beginning in like larger trades. I got the first one a month or so ago, and I'm sure they're going to continue with them. So I'm looking forward to rediscovering the whole thing again from the beginning. But anyone who loves, you know, the sheer joy of like Silver Age style heroes, and then, you know, but then he also explores, you know, the darker side as we enter the 1970s and the Bronze Age. This is the book, if you haven't been reading it and you love that type of story, you really owe it to yourself. Go back to the beginning, get the first trade. They just reissued again a new trade that contains the first couple of stories. I mean, you're going to love it. It is without question, since the mid 90s, as Murd mentioned, one of the greatest superhero comics on the stands.
Agreed.
And it's all Busiek and the artist working with him. It's his baby. It's his universe. There's so many loving callbacks, so many different tried and true, you know, concepts that we all love that he puts his own sort of spin on. And one of the great things about Astro City is it really emphasizes the impact, and this is what he did in Marvels too, the impact of these heroes on the little people, so to speak. It's great. So it was really fun to return to that.
You're not the only one who read it, actually.
Oh, please.
There was an advanced copy sent to us by Image digitally, and I did read through it. And as someone who's only read minimal Astro City, I've mentioned on Comic Talk here when I read the first volume of it. Actually, I loved every single minute of it. It was exactly what I was in the mood for at the time. Was just like an old school, you know, Teen Titans-esque adventure
Yep.
written by a master, and that's who Kurt Busiek is. And it was like going home again. It's just like it's classic comics in every single way, shape, and form. It's beautiful. And
to piggyback on what you said, Ian, you know, describing Busiek as a master, which of course I wholeheartedly concur with. Yep. It's always wonderful to experience any kind of art where you have, you know, veteran creators who are still at the peak of their powers, and they have all that experience and all of that knowledge and skill. And when they bring it, you know, to the page like that, nothing's better. I mean, it's great stuff.
Yep. Indeed.
More Busiek.
And
holy crap, is this good?
Arrowsmith.
So this is we were talking about this when we did one of the previews the one month they posted it. So the Arrowsmith storyline, which is Busiek and Carlos Pacheco, my God, I almost forgot what a tremendous artist he is.
Mm-hmm. Better now than he was when Arrowsmith got its start.
Yeah, I would agree. And so just if people aren't aware, back in the, I don't know, it was in the 2000s, I think. I don't remember the year now.
Oh yeah, it would be 2005, I think, since I've read it, so it must be.
Yeah. The time bubble knows all. So basically, Busiek and Pacheco have created a world where World War I is happening, but it involves sorcery and various, you know, supernatural creatures. And the main character is from, they don't call it the United States, but he comes from North America into this alternate world, and he joins the British sort of Royal Flying Corps, where they fly because they form like a bond with small dragons, and they use that magic to allow them to essentially act as pilots in dogfights and so forth, as you can see on the cover of this from the current issue 1 of the current series. And the original story was great. It was imaginative. I mean, they clearly studied the history of the First World War, and they incorporated this new alternate reality they've created that also involves magic, and I loved it. And then it was over, and then, you know, that was it. And I was so excited when they announced they're going to return to it all these years later. And it's just as good, if not better, than the original miniseries. And I just got the hardcover, they reissued it, of the original, which I haven't read in probably nearly 20 years. So I'm looking forward to reading that again. But this is phenomenal. And his artwork is just mind-blowing in this book. Yeah. Because he's got to draw both World War I type, you know, equipment and uniforms, but then he's incorporating, you know, the supernatural, like fairy folk into it, the supernatural and different mythic creatures. And it's wonderful. And anyone who enjoys like, you know, alternate history type stuff, and if you just want to get a feast of one of the great artists at the peak of his powers, this is a book you got to read. It's really superb. Hey, look at that.
Look
at that.
And the color work is
Oh yes.
So the color, I'm glad I should have mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jose, I'm going to butcher this. Villarrubia is doing just tremendous coloring on this book.
Yeah.
Great inking by Jose Rafael Fonteriz. I mean, the whole team is tremendous. This is great comics right here.
And to say the least, I mean, Busiek and Pacheco wrote one of the best comics ever made. So it's only fair that they work just as well together this time around on a sequel to something from years gone by. So great stuff.
And Levy Pooh, what great work you referred to, in case some listeners don't.
Avengers Forever, but of course.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which I'm still hoping they're going to incorporate somehow into a future film.
Yeah, definitely. I need to. I mean, I know it has very little to do with the original Avengers Forever, but I have to catch myself up on the new Avengers Forever series because
that I have not read.
There's 4 issues now available. Jason Aaron writing it. It's very Exiles and it's execution and it's everything I want in that way, even if it's not quite Avengers Forever. So I'll have to catch myself up on that.
Not the same concept, but there's lots of Avengers goodness all the same.
Amen to that.
Each issue introduces you to a new alternate realities Avengers characters, and it's just chock full of imagination and just quality.
Good stuff.
I have to just note, because it's back. It's been back a few months.
Oh hey, Saga. Well, never heard of it.
All I'll say is, once again, accept no substitutes.
Yes.
If you want to get somebody into the comic book medium,
Saga's the way to do it.
Just get the first trade, hand it to them. They'll be back. Like when I own my shop, that's what I would use, like, Why the Last Man for. Like, you want to try something here, and that was enough. Same thing with this book. Same writer, of course. It's. I mean, come on. I've been spewing about this book for years now, so it's just ad nauseum at this point. But it was gone. It was out away for what, 3 years, Ian?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It just hasn't missed a beat.
Yeah.
They've advanced the story forward in time, but that's not a tradition in any way. And I'm still riveted by these characters and their adventures and what they're dealing with. And again, at the heart of Saga, it's all about family. In this space operatic, world, but that's really what it's about. And no one does it better than Vaughn and Staples. So
and some of the most creative covers.
Oh yeah.
In comics, it brings you into the world like no other book.
And what's great about Fiona Staples' work is that because they borrow so many elements naturally from our own sort of world and popular culture, then put it in the world of Saga. But of course, there's a twist with everything to fit into that world.
Sure.
And her like the sheer breadth of her ability, like she can do everything from like the cutest like child or like small furry creature to the most whacked out tiddling like porn you've ever seen. So it's everything. It's such a great book. I wish Shane was here for this one especially. Batman Night. I mentioned this briefly in our previews episode. This is again, it's Zdarsky writing. Automatically, I'm going to try it. And magnificent artwork. Forgive me, let me get the name there. Carmine, I'm going to butcher this too. I apologize. Giandomenico. That was terrible. So what I love about this, I've read the first 4. It's about that period of time in Bruce Wayne's life where he leaves Wayne Manor and he disappears for however many years. And that's where, of course, he gets a lot of his training and all the different disciplines he has to master if he wants to become Batman. And Zdarsky is really exploring in great detail that whole journey and the different people he meets and the ramifications of these different relationships he forms, because he's not Batman yet. He's this young man who's trying to get a hold of what he wants to become. So Zdarsky really explores that. So it's not like the mercurial older Bruce Wayne who is just all closed off. Like, this is a guy who's trying to figure out how he's going to do what he wants to do. It's superb. Like it's really well done. Any Batman fan, if you haven't tried this, I highly recommend it. I haven't been reading Batman regularly in a little while, and this is the first kind of, I think, Batman miniseries I've picked up in a bit, and it's excellent. I mean, this guy, what a writer he's become. Holy mackerel.
Amazing.
Um,
I think I believe it's Di Giandomenico or Giandomenico.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, as the name of the artist, and this is a book that I've been looking forward to catching up on once it's all collected, and I certainly will be doing so. It's 10 issues, so it is a commitment. So I think in hardcover or softcover form, it'll look great.
And I don't have a copy in front of me, but I've read the first 2 issues of also Batman of Tom King's Killing Time. Which explores, forgive me, I don't remember the artist is on it. I don't know, but it explores, it's early in Batman's career. And basically it's bringing in pretty much all of his rogues. And it's him trying to track down this plot that's going on with involving the Riddler and the Catwoman, Killer Croc. I don't want to say too much. And plus I've only read the first 2 issues. Once again, I'm just really so in awe of everything Tom King is doing with the Batman concept.
Mr. Marquez.
Yes, there. Oh yeah. So there you go. The art is phenomenal.
Yep.
And just to see Tom playing with so many of the great Batman rogues in sort of an early period in Batman's career, also really delightful so far. And I'm enjoying the night a bit more, but this book is still early. I've only read the first 2 issues. So that I highly recommend. And also, I haven't read it yet, but Batman Catwoman is winding up. So this is issue 11 that I got recently. I haven't read this one yet, but I've been thoroughly enjoying his exploration of Bruce Selene relationship in different time periods. And of course, the story is exploring also the fact that Selena, as an older woman, decides it's time to, shall we say, resolve things with the Joker. As I said with other Tom King works, I can't wait to read this again in one sitting when the inevitable hardcover comes out, because I think they're going to get even more out of it. But DC is doing great stuff with Batman, and considering Zdarsky is going to be taking over the flagship title in characters like we discussed in last previews, I'm really excited for where they're going with that character. So that's been a lot of fun. The other thing I wanted to mention, then I'll turn over to you two fine gentlemen. I don't think I mentioned this last time. Did I mention this comic book creator about Paul Gulacy? I don't think I did.
I don't think so either.
No. Okay. So this is the last comic book creator from Tomorrow's, where they're a magazine where they focus on a whole issue pretty much dedicated, not a whole issue, but most issues dedicated to a major creator. And, you know, Paul Gulacy is one of the great master of Kung Fu artists. That's where he started to become a name and famous for his work in the 70s, his dazzling work. Right with Doug Monk, of course, writing that classic title at the time. And they do a wonderful retrospective of his entire career, all the different work he's done, his influences. Murray talks about working with Dan Adkins, who comes from your neck of the woods, the late great Dan Adkins, because in Pennsylvania. So it's a really interesting sort of bio on Gulacy's whole life, his influences, and they really explore why his work on Master of Kung Fu was so important, and how it really was like next level stuff in the Bronze Age, as so many certain artists were at that time. And they also talk about his advertising work, the fact he did a great run on Catwoman with Ed Brubaker in the 2000s, which I also cherish. So, and they talk about different stuff he did for Warren. I've mentioned when he did our Black Widow Spotlight, how he did a wonderful, Murd, what's that Marvel magazine? I always forget it. Oh, hell.
Fanfare?
No. It was a magazine format.
Oh.
1980s. I'm failing terribly right now. I can't believe I forgot the name of it. But he did a wonderful Black Widow story in that called, You Got the Yo-Yo, I've Got the String, which I mentioned before. And his artwork is just breathtaking. I remember as a kid when I saw his Shang-Chi for the first time, and I was exposed to that Black Widow story as a kid, it just blew my mind. So one of the great masters, it was great to see such a reverent retrospective in the pages of Comic Book Creator. So great stuff there.
Is it Bizarre Adventures?
Bizarre Adventures. All
right.
There we go.
Well done. Well done, Ian. Yep. Bizarre Adventures.
Issue 25 of Bizarre Adventures from 1981.
Which I think also had Daughters of the Dragon on the cover, if I remember correctly. As a side note, if you just want wacky early 80s Marvel fun, that magazine is a hoot. A lot of great black and white stories. All kinds of different creators were involved. Good stuff. Bizarre Adventure.
I've got one.
Gentlemen, that's my field report.
Remember, there was a Nightcrawler and the Vanisher team up in one of those.
There you go.
Direct lead into the Dave Cockrum Nightcrawler miniseries.
That's right. Yep. Well done, Murd.
Nice. All right. I got a couple of comics that I can opine on real quick, and then I'll hand it over to Murd.
Opine away.
All right. Starting off with Justice League Road to Dark Crisis, number 1. I remember saying on this very show that I wish that Justice League number 75 had been a Road to Dark Crisis, but then they put it out an actual comic called Road to Dark Crisis. And I'm glad that I read this issue before I read the next comic that I'm going to talk about real quick, because some of the stuff discussed in here leads directly into that, even though this came out, I think, after it, technically. But anyway, this is explained almost the exact way that it looks right here on the cover. You get like four different stories with other members of the DC hero world. The first story is a Josh Williamson, Dan Jurgens story that's excellent, with just Nightwing and Jonathan Kent reflecting on a world without a Justice League. And it's kind of Dick coming to terms with the fact that, what if they don't come back this time? Because right at this point, he's very much of the mind that they will, because they have before. Superman's come back, Batman's come back, Bruce, Barry's come back, so on and so forth. But Jonathan convinces Dick to go to a memorial for the Justice League, because he realizes that it's very important for Dick to make his presence known there, that that Nightwing is an important person to have at the lead.
Well, Nightwing becomes like an elder statesman if all these other characters are gone.
Exactly. And that's pretty much what he basically made him realize he was acting like Bruce, and Dick comes to terms with that, and it was like, okay, you're right, let me make myself known and head out there. There's another story with both Wally and Wallace on the search for Barry. There's a small Pariah story where we get a little bit more of his backstory leading into what he eventually becomes in Dark Crisis. There's a Hal Jordan and Aqualad story. If he's still calling himself Aqualad, I'm not entirely sure, because I don't think he was ever really called Aqualad in the comics, to be honest. The black Aqualad. I think he's gone by a bunch of different names over the years. But anyway,
I think he was one of the title characters of an Aquaman miniseries recently, so it's anybody's guess.
Exactly. But Hal also coming to terms with the fact that although he's an elder statesman of the Justice League, he was not there when the Justice League had their incident. So now he is one of the elder statesmen of the JLA left around. So he's going off to figure out everything that went wrong, and what he can do to help, basically, back on Earth. But overall, it's a pretty good multi-story book. But I'm glad I read it before I read Free Comic Book Day Dark Crisis Special Edition, because that actually has some pages from Dark Crisis number 1 included in the back of it, and Nightwing being at the ceremony that's being discussed in this lead up to it happens in that first issue of Dark Crisis, even though this was released on the stands as part of Free Comic Book Day at the beginning of May, and the other thing came out a couple weeks later. It's not a big deal, but I'm still glad that I unintentionally read it in the right order. This Free Comic Book Day issue, by the way, if you have not read it, Joshua Williamson and Jim Chung.
Wow. Oh, I love Jim Chung's work.
Right of admission, to be sure.
Yeah. And it's just on the lead story, and the lead story involves Wally West Flash taking on Clayface. And watching Jim Chung draw Clayface, it's, oh my God. I so wish Jim Chung would work more regularly. I know.
Do we know why he doesn't? Is he just doing other things, or
he's doing other things? I mean, he does tons of cover work but it's very hard to get him on sequentials these days.
Oh, he's a great artist. Oh.
Whenever he does, he's lights out. And yeah, even just a small story that people were able to get for free was well worth checking out. And it does, tie into further Dark Crisis stuff, and there's some other stuff in here that would as well. But I'm weirdly hyped over this. It's strange. I'm a Marvel guy for the most part, but DC's had me lately. They really have, and I feel almost as anticipatory on DC stuff right now as I was in the early 2000s.
If they got the right creative teams, Ian, doesn't matter to me which character, which company. It's all about the creative team.
That is 100% the case. Yeah, and I very much enjoyed what I read out of that. Leading into it, and I'm looking forward to reading what comes in this upcoming storyline. Meanwhile, over at Marvel, I sunk my teeth into something that I was very much anticipating. Amazing Spider-Man #1.
I have not read that yet. I have it on my pile.
Yep. I read the first 2 issues. I read issue 1 and I read issue 2. Zeb Wells and John Romita Jr., Scott Hanna. You've got Romita Jr. and Hanna.
Yeah, that's a great team right there.
What else do you frickin' need?
So did you enjoy the story?
I actually really did.
All right. I'll read it tonight.
It's
all right.
So it leaves off, on the very first page, you get like what Marvel's been using as their preview page of, like, what did Spider-Man do? That's quite literally the first page of the comic. And then you get 6 months later. And that's where we pick up. We don't know what happened. We don't know what Spider-Man did. All we know is that his life is essentially in shambles again. Shock of shocks, he's Peter Parker. Like, that doesn't surprise me at all. But he's broke again. Aunt May's not talking to him anymore. And Mary Jane's not talking to him. And there's a huge reveal at the end of the first issue that people are either going to throw their comic across the room, or they're going to be like, "Oh God, here we go again." Okay,
all right.
It's a huge Mary Jane reveal. I'll just leave it at that. Tombstone is the driving force of this, and anything involving Tombstone I love. I've always enjoyed the character,
especially when they bring in his whole relationship with Robbie.
Exactly. This is not necessarily the relationship with Robbie. This is the relationship with Robbie's son.
Randy. Okay.
Yeah, as Randy is dating Tombstone's daughter at the moment.
Does he know that she's Tombstone's daughter?
Yes, he does.
That's an interesting conversation to have with his father. Okay.
To say the least. However, he is not aware that she is the current Beetle.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is going to draw its own problems down the line. But a lot of what's going on here is a gang battle between the Rose and Tombstone.
Who's the Rose now?
The original. He's back. It's Fisk's son.
Oh wow. Okay.
As the Rose, I'm sure he got better at some point.
Rose was a great character in the '80s. They used him very effectively.
Absolutely. And the crime war going on there while Peter deals with what's going on in his life. And I'm intrigued. It's old school Spider-Man. At least it feels like old school Spider-Man for me, and it has a ground floor start.
All right.
That's what
I look forward to reading it.
Good stuff. And, Zeb Wells is a great writer. The other thing that I was reading. So how about that Zdarsky fella? I checked out the All-Nighter.
I haven't read this.
Yeah. See, this was on the top of my pile too.
Yes. This is a Comixology original. I picked up the full trade of it.
I got to read this.
It was only like $2 on digital. So I picked it up, and I've been reading it on Comixology over the past couple of nights. Chip Zdarsky and Jason Liu. I think the best way for me to describe this is a cross between Fables and superheroes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's about a group of urban vampires who fill their nights slinging hash in a diner and trying to stay out of trouble, both with humans and with this mysterious ruling council of night creatures. And if they step out of line, the takers will come and get them. But one of them is just so stir crazy with this routine and so obsessed with superhero movies, he decides to try putting on a costume and using his vampire powers to be one.
Yes.
That's enough. I can't wait to read it.
Yep. and mind you, the reason I say fables is that, like, it's implied through the story itself that the entire reason why things like vampires and mermaids and Frankenstein exist in this reality is because stories willed them into being, essentially. So without the original stories and folklore itself, we would not have these vampires running around. So that's pretty cool. And
oh yeah,
Zdarsky, you're the man. Like, that's it. Anything you write, I'm gonna check out, and this is really, really, really good stuff here. Mm-hmm. Every Comixology original he's done so far, I've loved, and this is way up there for me. So.
Yeah, it's kind of a corned beef hash of a lot of really interesting ideas that that Zdarsky clearly had flapping around in mind, and he just seems to keep throwing more and more of them in as this. It's supposed to be the equivalent of 5 issues of comics, I think. It appeared first digitally, of course,
yep.
And it just, for my money, though, he doesn't really develop any of them quite as far as he could or should. It's like he just takes them as far as he feels like, or as far as Comixology gave him the space to, and then it just kind of ends in medias res. It's like it's in the middle of a fight scene, and suddenly it's done. So it's a little choppy and a little uneven, but decent food for thought along the way.
Certainly, yeah, and I could see how you could feel that way, Murd. I hope more than anything else that we get more in this world, that we're not just stuck to like the 5 issues that he gave us here, because there's too much good stuff for it to simply just end there. So I sincerely hope that we do indeed get way more of this. Before I forget, the other thing that I checked out is something that you could only actually check out on Marvel Unlimited. It's one of their Unlimited comics, and it's Patsy Walker. Marvel put together a infinite comic titled Patsy Walker 1955.
Ooh.
And it's basically old school Patsy Walker Archie style action. And
are these reprints from that period? Are they homages to
brand spanking new comics? Yeah.
Wow.
Written by Trina Robbins, and the pencils are by Derek Charm. And the first couple of issues involve Patsy Walker and her friends competing at a concert to go see Chad Collins in concert.
He's a dreamboat.
He truly is, yeah. And the artwork in this is the star more than anything else, because I love a good 50s pastiche, Archie type thing more than anybody. But what Derek Charm is putting out is, pardon the pun, it's very charming. It's this is what it looks like here for any of you,
wow,
general listeners. And because it's an infinite comic, you scroll down to read it. So this is the way that the comics read. It's basically just an infinite scroll of comic pages.
Look at that artwork! Wow,
it's beautiful. It's
talk about evocative of the era.
You got it.
Very impressive.
And I've been thoroughly impressed with what Marvel Unlimited has been doing with these Unlimited comics, because they're using the space properly. Like the idea of scrolling, downward as opposed to, flipping through pages, is one that I had to get used to. But now that I have, they're finding innovative and new ways of using this, as was the case with Jonathan Hickman and Declan Shelby's X-Men Infinite comic at the beginning of this whole. So very, very good stuff all around. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Murd, what do you got?
Well, I got 2 things to share. One more for Ian, and one of them more for Chris.
Thank you, brother.
So, Ian, let me ask you this. Have you encountered this comic before? Dean Haspiel's
great creator,
The Red Hook.
No, I haven't. I know of Dean Haspiel, but I have not encountered The Red Hook yet.
Well, Ian, this is a whole lot of Brooklyn going on. Yes, it's not only is Brooklyn the setting, it's virtually a character, in as much as the story takes place in a world in which the borough of Brooklyn has achieved sentience. It has suffered a massive broken heart from just corporate infiltration and rising real estate prices. It physically secedes from the mainland United States. It becomes an island unto itself. The whole thing was inspired by a real-life incident, which you may recall back in 2014, the Brooklyn Bridge. Somebody replaced the American flags on top of it with white flags of surrender.
Yes,
like an artistic political statement. And that got Dean Haspiel and a couple of his art collective cronies thinking. And they thought, hey, let's run from the hypothetical question. What if Jack Kirby and Alex Toth got together in Brooklyn and put together a little small universe of superhero characters based in this independent, seceded New Brooklyn, which, as you may notice, is the subtitle of Volume 1 of the Red Hook collection here.
Right.
Yeah, this was originally done for Line Webtoon. So like the All-Nighter, this was digital first. And it tells the story, somewhat loosely and kookily, of a guy named Sam Brosia, a.k.a. the Red Hook, who is a costumed criminal. And he and his costumed criminal sweetie, kind of his Catwoman analog, the Possum, they're jumping around on this strange new world of New Brooklyn, finding their footing. It's a world where art is a currency. Where it's like if a painting can buy you a house, a doodle on a napkin can get you a sandwich. So it's kind of a bit of a utopian vision on the part of Haspiel and company. And at some point then, in the scene shown on the cover here, the Red Hook, in the middle of these little devil-may-care picaresque adventures he has with the Possum, he runs afoul of a pair of refugees from the Fourth World, basically, two cosmic superheroes, one of whom has gone bad and corrupt and is trying to steal the power of the other. And the one who hasn't gone corrupt is dying, and he forces the Red Hook to accept this cosmic artifact called the Omnifist of Altruism, which he thrusts right into the Red Hook's chest and embeds it around his heart. And so now he's got this thing in his chest that literally is going to squeeze his heart to pulp if he doesn't perform altruistic acts and be a superhero in the place of this cosmic guy who has just died. So it's the story of a costumed thief who goes good and becomes a superhero completely against his will, kicking and screaming.
I love the concept.
It's interesting, gonzo, out there stuff, a little on the pretentious side at times. It's about 3 parts wonky homage to Silver Age superhero comics, and 1 part, bohemian utopian vision of New Brooklyn.
I literally just bought the digital copy as you were. It's only $9 on Amazon right now for digital purchase. So yes, thank you, Murd. Done.
I figured I probably had you at Brooklyn, but
well, you had me at the name of the character, because it even took me a minute. Wait a minute, the Red Hook. Red Hook Brooklyn. So that makes perfect sense. There we are.
Yes, one of his arch enemies is a lucha masked muscular bruiser guy named Benson Hurst.
Oh boy.
I can't wait.
Yeah, they know their setting. Yeah. It's art wise, I think they were kind of achieving their Toth meets Kirby goal pretty well. But also, in addition to that, just the dynamism of the drawing and the color work too. If you're a fan of Eric Powell's The Goon, the Red Hook, visually at least, would be of interest to you as well. Yeah, it's
excellent.
Yeah, storytelling is a little. I'm getting the impression that Haspiel's a slightly better artist than he is a storyteller, because it doesn't flow all that well. Sometimes not even from page to page, let alone from chapter to chapter. He seems to be focusing more on communicating whatever idea and or mood he wants to get across in each individual image, more than he is stringing them together into a cohesive story. Although that's not to suggest that he fails at that. It's just it's maybe best appreciated, page by page as opposed to work as a whole. But yeah, so that's it's a fun reading experience. And Ian, if you like this, there is a second volume out there, which I do have but have not read yet.
Okay, excellent. I'll check out volume 1 and see if it's my bag, and if it is, volume 2 shall be mine.
All right. And now for the other thing I have on my pile here, we're going to go back a little bit further in comics history. Whenever one of the major patriotic holidays rolls around, Memorial Day, 4th of July, I like to dig out something that has something to do with, either flashy Star Spangled Patriotism or like American history or military history.
Ooh.
And last year I read it was the War of the Trenches on Memorial Day, and that's definitely skewing more to the latter, to military history. This is more the Yankee Doodle Dandy kind of thing. And Chris, you might get a kick out of this. This is something Marvel published in 2018 in celebration of Marvel's 80th anniversary. It was Decades. It was a collection of trade paperbacks collecting the adventures of some character or some strip that kind of embodies the Marvel's content from that one of the 8 decades of their publishing history. I have here Decades in the Marvel in the 50s, Captain America Strike. And what you saw for a brief moment there is
Cap is Commie Smasher.
Exactly. It's the cover to Cap the resurrected number 76, Captain America Commie Smasher. Yeah, so this is a collection of the Captain America revival of the 50s, which was part of a slightly broader superhero revival.
They tried to bring back Namor and the Torch too.
Yep, all at the same time, and it all worked about as well.
Yeah,
which was not
and I think John Romita Sr. worked on some of these stories.
Absolutely, Chris.
Wow.
Yep. What I've got, I was a little surprised at how short-lived this 50s Cap, etc. revival was, because it all took place in over a period of 9 months. From the end of 1953 through like September of 54, and then it was over and done. The Captain America stuff amounts to only about 100 pages of material, all told.
Wow.
Between 3 issues, number 76, 77, and 78 of Captain America comics, and a few stories in Young Men comics and Men's Adventures comics. And Chris is absolutely right that most of the material here, most of the Cap 50s revival was drawn by a young John Romita Sr.
Yep.
With some contributions from Mort Lawrence and Jack Abel. So, yeah, it's just really just a handful of stories. But yes, it's Captain America and Bucky. At first, they're shown as being, after the war, they went to a private school called the Lee School. I don't know how much relation, but anyway, so Steve Rogers was a teacher, and Bucky, who apparently hadn't gotten any older since 1940, his prized pupil. But after about 2 days of that, they just dropped that framing device, and Cap and Bucky they're back to joining the army and hanging out on an army base most of the time. And of course, they're going after not Nazis this time, but spies, subversives,
Red Menace.
Exactly. It's fairly propagandistic, just good guys versus bad spies, black hats versus white hats. And there are a couple of appearances by the Red Skull in there too, who is now a communist agent. And eventually all of this was retconned eventually. It needed to be, because at the time, everybody who was involved in this revival was convinced this is the same character that we were writing back in World War II. It's the same Cap and Bucky. But after Stan Lee's idea from Avengers #4, where Cap has spent the last a decade and a half or so frozen in a block of ice, obviously he couldn't have been active in the 50s. So much later it was retconned that this was actually some other guy and some other young man in the Bucky.
That's the classic Steve Englehart stuff from the Bronze Age. Mm-hmm. Explore that.
Yep, that's when we get the 50s Cap. And we also learned that he received an incomplete version of the super soldier serum that made him, and Bucky too, Jack Monroe Bucky, slightly insane and paranoid, and they just went around beating up people who were not even communists. So it became a neat little retroactive metaphor for McCarthyism. But very little of that is visible in the actual material from the 50s. This is just flag waving, get those dirty red scum kind of stories. Some of them involve the Asian Red Menace, and it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, writing wise at least. I mean, the script writers for these stories were at least careful to distinguish between like the loyal, upstanding, patriotic Chinese American citizens of Chinatown and the dirty red spies who are trying to bring them over to the communist cause. The characters don't speak in broken English or anything like that, but visually,
are they bright yellow?
The color of raw butter.
Okay.
It's a phenotype that does not exist in the human genome at all. It's really kind of regrettable for that reason. Yeah. But at least on the level of writing, it's more sensitivity to
All right.
Diversity in the United States and the world beyond that I would have given stories of this period credit for.
Sure. Yeah. There's a reason why, times have changed for the better in some ways, and skin color in comics has definitely improved. Let's put it that way.
Amen to that.
Bird, great stuff. Thank you.
Yep. I was just
And
say, I like the unintentional kismet of you talking senior while I talk junior. So that was a job well done there.
Yeah, it's one of those funny little synchronicities that can only come about during a comic talk episode.
Indeed, yep.
And a final note, I haven't read all the way through this trade since, like I said, there's only like 100 pages worth of 50s Cap, so they padded out the rest of it with this story that I'll probably save for 4th of July. It's by Howard Chaykin. It was published
I remember that.
Yep, Captain America, Theater of War, America First. Came out in 2000, I believe, and it's 1950s set story of Nick Fury investigating the activities of this unauthorized 1950s replacement Cap who popped out of nowhere.
Good stuff. Which funny, were there 2 different Captain America comics called Theater of War? Because when I pulled it up,
yes, I think it was a series of stories, if I remember correctly.
That is the second subtitle. Yeah, this is Theater of War, America First.
Got it. Okay, yeah, because when I just searched Theater of War, I got a story by Paul Jenkins with
that's right,
artwork by Gary Erskine. So, yep. Okay.
Before I forget, Ian, if I could mention, I briefly teased this a while back on video. I finally received last month my classic collection of Marvel Blacklight posters.
Yes.
So the Third Eye posters from the 70s, which fetched significant dollars if you can find originals, and they finally did a reissue of all of I don't know if it's all of them or most of them at least. And they're too big to show on my little camera here, but they are glorious. And I'll be framing at least 2 or 3 of them to put on in my downstairs office in my library, especially the one with Doctor Strange where it just says eternity. And they're black lights, so the psychedelia is off the hook. One of my favorites is one of Donald Blake dreaming in repose, and his sleeping form is in the foreground, and I see Thor medley floating in a psychedelic world behind him. And the Silver Surfer one is essentially an LSD trip. So these are just, they're everything I wanted them to be. So I look forward to getting some of them framed. But
Chris, did you know that they essentially did a homage to that as one of the Doctor Strange posters in IMAX?
No. Oh God, did they ever? Wow. Holy mackerel!
This, I believe, was for the original Doctor Strange, not for Multiverse of Madness.
Wow.
Yeah, just searching it now on Amazon. There's I think a 9.
That's awesome.
9x3 or something available for purchase. 9x5, but 9.5 by 13 IMAX blacklight Cumberbatch Doctor Strange photo. Yep.
But it's going to be agonizing because I think I want to say it came with 12 of them. I mean, there's Daredevil, there's Iron Man. I mean, there's all great artists who are working on these from the time period. It was expensive, but worth it because I'd never be able to afford or even find the originals. So
absolutely, yeah. Just even looking at some of the artwork of some.
Look at that!
Absolutely. Trippy as hell in all the right ways.
Yeah, it's a Doctor Strange one. Yep.
Beautiful.
I want to say that's Marie Severin art. I think.
I think you're right about that.
Yeah.
Yep.
But beautiful.
Excellent. Nice way to end us off with something nice and trippy. Anything else, gentlemen, or bolt shot?
I think bolt is shot.
Okay, terrific. Well, as usual, once again, thank you all for your support of the show. Patreon.com/comicgeekspeak for continued support. And you guys are awesome. And we thank you so much in every single way that we can. And now we thank you with Murd playing the role of Shane.
So begins the stuff.
Yeah. All you go right ahead.
If you'd like to send us an email, that address is comicgeekspeak@gmail.com, where you can also send your Muddle the Murd entries. If you'd like to leave a voicemail so that we can hear your lovely voices, you may call 267-702-6642. You can like us on Facebook. Also on Facebook, you can join our Comic Geek Speak super group, where you can talk back about this and many other Comic Geek Speak episodes as they're announced there, and also just start conversation threads with your fellow group members and CGS listeners on any topic you want, as long as it has to do with comics and doesn't get too negative. You can also go to the comicforums.vanillacommunity.com, which is our original online forum presence, where you can do much the same things. That's still there. We'll encourage you to use it. You can follow us on Twitter, where our handle is @ComicGeekSpeak. You can go to youtube.com/ComicGeekSpeak, where you can find the video versions of all of our recent episodes and just watch and listen to those at your heart's content. We would like to give special thanks, as always, to those of you who have donated monetarily to the show, either in the distant past or more recently via Patreon et al. We truly appreciate it, and the show would not be what it is today without your continued support. And as always, we are uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time.
You got it on Wednesday, and you was psyched about it, going to the volume up. These guys will talk about it, everything the geeks love. From cakes to laser beams, opinions like the seasons on everything you read. And comics, movies, games, toys, artists, come! Comic Geek Speak, comic Geek Speak, comic Geek Speak, comic Geek Speak, comic Geek. Uniting the world's mightiest heroes, this is... Comic Geek Speak!
How many themes do we have? A lot!